Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Convention Procedures Q&A. I know everybody's time is valuable, and so I think we will start the process. Just from a procedural perspective, I don't know how many people are familiar with using GoToWebinar, but to open and close the control panel, you use the orange arrow button, usually found at the top right of the screen. You can choose to join using two forms of audio. You can use the microphone and speakers through voice over internet protocols, so through your web browser, or you can use telephone and dial in using the information that is provided. You can submit questions and comments via the question panel. There is a question panel in the control panel, and if you click on that, it opens up a question box and you can type in your questions there. Today's presentation is being recorded and it will be shared at a later point in time. There are handouts available in the handouts section of your control panel, so you can access those as well. If you do have a question, you can use the hand icon if you have an issue that requires any attention, or if you wish to answer or ask a question. Currently, right now, we're a smaller group, and everyone is muted now, but if they go into the attendees, or if they see on their screen right underneath the orange arrow button, an orange microphone, you can unmute your phone there and ask questions as we move through the process. So I'm going to ask that everybody remain muted for the time being, but if you have a question, please feel free to unmute your phone. If you have any difficulties with that, please send us a query in the questions box and we'll try to remedy that situation for you. So welcome. My name is James Little. I'm the regional representative for the PSAC in working out of the Victoria Regional Office. I'm joined here today with Rosemary McKenzie, who also works out of the Victoria Regional Office, and Patty Ducharme, who works as a regional rep out of the Vancouver Regional Office. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that I live and work on the ancestral, traditional, and unceded Indigenous territories of the Coast Salish people, and specifically the Esquimalt and Songhees First Nations. Jamie Mills, the REVP for BC, PSAC, is unfortunately unable to meet with us tonight, but he shares this greeting. He says, "Hi everyone, and thanks for taking the time today for this webinar. I had a prior commitment and unfortunately I'm unable to join you." PSAC's regional, national, and component conventions are truly union democracy at work. The decisions delegates who are elected from the membership will make at these conventions, the resolutions that are moved forward, and the leaders who are elected determine our union's direction, our focus, and our future. The rules of order and our voting procedures play a vital role in ensuring that our conventions run smoothly and democratically, and I'm very glad to see you wanting to learn more about these things. I know that you'll find this webinar to be a useful learning exercise, and I hope that you'll take what you learn tonight and put it to good use at an upcoming convention. So at this point, I'm going to turn, I'm just going to run through the agenda. We've done the introductions. We're going to talk about preparing and participating at a convention. And then we're going to do a short Convention 101 on resolutions and voting. We may do a practice, and we will definitely have a Q&A and a wrap up at the end. So at this point in time, I'm going to turn it over to Patty Ducharme, who will walk us through preparing to participate at a convention. Patty?
Thanks, James. I want to welcome all of you as well. I think it's fantastic that you're all getting to go to convention. We'll find out in what capacity shortly. But as someone who loves the synergy of convention and loves membership democracy in action, it is indeed, from an organizational perspective, a really exciting time and an exciting event. It's going to be different this time, given it's a virtual convention, as opposed to members coming together. But nonetheless, it is an exciting event. So before we actually sort of get into the meat of the convention's procedures, we just want to do a couple of polls to figure out where you fall into things. We want to know whether you have actually attended a union convention in the past. So we'd like you to answer this poll with either yes, no, or I'm not sure. So we've got the poll open. And if people could answer the poll. And Rosemary, if you could close it and we'll see. I'm not seeing the answer. Did you get the answer, Rosemary? Do you have it there?
I have the results here.
Oh, okay, great.
There are
So,
75% who have attended, so voting yes, and there's 25 that have voted no.
great. So we have experienced folks and less experienced folks on the convention front. So now we want to find out about what upcoming conventions you'll be attending. So we've got for this poll the PSAC BC Regional Convention, your component convention, the PSAC National Convention, National Triennial Convention, and then I'm not attending a convention. So if we could open that poll, please. I think we could close it now.
And again, the results are 75% will be attending the PSAC regional convention. 100% will be attending component conventions, and 50% will be attending the PSAC national convention. So there's a lot of the population here are going to be at conventions.
That's fantastic. Thanks for that. So I'm just going to, I get very distracted when I see myself on screen. So obviously at convention, there are people that play different roles at convention. We've got delegates who, come to convention and participate, observers. We have convention committee members. We have the chair of the convention. There's obviously staff. James, myself, Rosemary will be at convention. And then other. And by other, we mean invited guests. So members of the PSAC National Board of Directors will be there. There'll be an Indigenous elder who will be there. There'll be other representatives from the labor community. I expect we'll probably see the president of the BC Federation of Labor and maybe some other people who participate on the BC Fed or the CLC executive, the Canadian Labour Congress Executive Committee. So there will be mostly PSAC members and staff, but there will be other people there who may be called on to play, some sort of role. Obviously, for our group today, the majority of folks attending are either delegates or observers. So we're going to move on to slide number 8. And we're going to talk about the key responsibilities for folks at conventions, specifically for delegates. Now, I'm wondering if people would like to unmute their mic and volunteer up or speak and say what they think some of their responsibilities as a delegate would be, or what delegates should be doing at convention. I'm just looking to see if anybody's going to speak. Don't be shy. Okay, I'm not getting anyone. So delegates obviously should be informed on the issues. We want to ensure that they participate in the plenary session debate, that they vote on convention committee recommendations and in the elections. So it goes without saying they have to be present in order to do that. They should attend applicable caucus meetings, promote the views and concerns of the members that they represent, report back to the members that they represent, the members that have chosen them to attend convention, and take responsibility for follow-up on strategies and decisions that affect members in your constituency. And although I didn't say it, I should have said too that, you know, we obviously have a variety of experience. Some of you have attended conventions, some of you have not. And in order to build capacity, it goes without saying that it's a good thing for us to share our experiences and to help each other out so that people feel that they can fully participate in the convention. And if we were doing a convention in person, you would often see people buddying up so that they could do that. So that's just, you know, something that you may want to be thinking about so that when you're at convention, you feel better able to more fully participate as a delegate. Or let's talk about if you are oh my goodness, if you are an observer. I had a little moment there, a senior's moment. So
Patty, it's James here. I'm just wondering. I'm just want to do a mic check with someone who's
okay.
participating. So I know Tracy was trying to say something earlier. I'm
Oh,
just wondering if
okay.
Tracy, do you think that you could probably try to unmute yourself and speak?
Sure.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
We
yes.
can. So I'm hoping that I have managed to unmute everyone so that if you so choose, you can unmute yourselves and ask questions as we go, because we are a smaller group, and I think that it's we'll quite easily be able to accommodate that. So Patty, I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, no, thank you, James. Thank you for doing that. So go ahead, Tracy.
I was just gonna say, I went to my very first convention many years ago, and no one told me what my responsibilities were as a delegate, so I kind of winged it. But one of the things that I found most important is being present and being willing to participate and ask questions. So I think that's a big responsibility for a delegate. Is if you don't know, ask. And I asked.
Absolutely.
I know at my first BC PSAC convention, I asked everybody under the sun what, trying to figure out what to do. And I think another responsibility, and I think you have it in here anyways, is networking and making sure you're reaching out to other people. That's always helpful, I've found.
And on that point, Tracy, I think you said about asking questions. If you're a delegate and you are wanting to do something and you're not sure how to do it, either asking another delegate or even asking the chair if you feel that you can't ask another delegate. And I think with this being a virtual event, you know, people are not going to be as able to nudge the person next to them or go talk to their RVP from their region to ask them a question, or another area council delegate. So I think that you will see people asking questions, and I think that's a critically important point. So I really want to thank you for bringing that up. That's really, really important. So should we move on to observers' responsibilities? Observers obviously need to be informed about the issues as well. They need to promote the views and concerns of the members that they represent, again, who they've been chosen by to attend the convention. They should be ready to assist with campaigns at convention, to support delegates from your constituency. So if, for example, you're the alternate to your local, you're the observer to your locals delegate, if there's information or action that needs to flow from what's happening, you should be in communication with the locals delegate on the floor. You should also be prepared to act as an alternate. So for example, if your local delegate got ill or there was a family situation and they weren't able to attend, you should be ready to step in as the actual delegate. You would also be expected to report back to the members you represent and to take responsibility and follow up on strategies and decisions that affect members of your constituency. So I'm just wondering if people have other comments that they feel, other responsibilities, other ideas that observers should be sharing at this point in time. And if you do, please unmute yourself and speak. They're able to unmute, right, James?
Yeah, I'm not seeing any comments where they're having difficulties unmuting.
Okay.
I know Anne-Marie had indicated that she had problems with the handouts and the rules of order, and I just indicated that in the convention packages that are being mailed out right now,
It's in there.
It's the rules of order for the virtual convention are in the delegate guide.
Yeah, thanks for that. So we wanted to talk a little bit about preparation for convention and how can delegates and observers prepare for convention, and to think about, get people thinking about what you need to do in anticipation of the convention, before the convention. Sorry.
Hi, Patty, it's Anne-Marie. Can I interrupt with two questions?
Please.
Okay. In the previous slide regarding delegates, you were talking about voting, and I wanted to confirm that observers are not able to vote for the general elections, but I wasn't sure if observers are able to vote for caucus meetings.
On caucus meetings, now that's a great question.
Because I can't.
I think that at a point in time in BC, under the regional bylaws, that there was a provision for caucus members to vote in the equity.
Yes.
So let's just
specifically, that's what I was thinking of.
It's James here. There was a provision for observers. For observers to vote for their representative in specific caucuses. That was in effect because a number of years ago there were so few delegates for those particular constituents that they needed additional people to assist with the voting process in order to make it sort of more a little bit more legitimate. At the last convention where Robin Benson intervened and stopped the process of allowing observers to vote.
And just to follow up on that, James, this is the first fully funded regional convention. So theoretically, there should be adequate representation from each of not just the geographic caucuses, but the equity caucuses as well, because each equity committee gets to send delegates to the convention as well.
I think where the practice started years ago, and I think, Patty, you might have been a part of that decision, was with the directly chartered locals and separate employers, because we had so few directly chartered local members participating and very few separate employers, and so there was only like 3 people in the room. So it was difficult if there were 3 people in the room, and you know, in terms of the voting process, right? So
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I had another question in regards to observers and being able to promote. I wanted to confirm about what examples you might have regarding promotion, because I don't believe observers are able to speak on the floor during a convention.
You're quite right. They're not able to speak on the floor, but you could be talking to delegates, to people in your component caucuses, in equity caucuses about certain resolutions. You could be talking to people at breaks. You could say, I noticed that, you know, this resolution has a recommendation of non-concurrence, and, you know, we're really hoping to get the resolution actually passed as opposed to the committee's recommendation. And you can be talking to folks, lobbying folks who actually are, and I'm using my fingers, on the floor, debating and voting on resolutions. So the role of the observer is more fluid, because certainly they can be doing an awful lot of work and really have a big impact and a big influence on the outcome of the delegates' support for convention committee recommendations.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. So let's talk about getting ready for convention. Obviously, taking note of important dates and deadlines. And James has referenced the delegate guide that has gone out, and I actually received mine, I think, on Friday. So you'll want to review the delegate guide, and I mean, it'll go out to observers as well. And it contains the convention call. You'll want to review the information related to the convention website and all of the correspondence regarding convention. So in that document, you will see the rules of order for virtual conventions. And you'll want to review that in anticipation of the rules of order training that's taking place on Tuesday, May the 4th. You'll also, in that book, you'll see convention documents ahead of time. You'll see the annotated agenda. You'll want to review the bylaws and constitution ahead of time with respect to the elections and nominations. And we've already had a really good question about that. I would recommend as well that for virtual conventions, making sure that you've downloaded the most recent version of the platform being used, and take note of any advice or suggestions about improving your connectivity during the convention. Talk to other members who have attended a convention before and make sure that you've got support or know who you can go to. So again, if you're a local delegate and it's your first convention, is there somebody else from your local going who's attended another convention that you would be able to check in with if you have a question or a concern during convention? And if there's not, if there's someone within your component or someone else that you know that's going, I'm always texting people, or used to be, you know, when I was trying to get information, you know, especially given the fact that you can't walk across the floor or again, talk to the person right next to you. If you're going to be speaking on a specific resolution, do you have like a plan for support? You know, have you got people that will be working on that resolution with you? Have you created speaking notes? Have you consulted and strategized with the body you're representing? So for example, if you're going from the Mainland Human Rights Committee, have you had a discussion with the folks from the Mainland Human Rights Committee on a particular resolution and how you want to speak to the committee's recommendations? So those are all parts of getting ready for convention. And it goes really, really fast, right? So it's important to do whatever work that you can do in advance, so that you're, you know, you're as organized as you can be once there. So I'm just checking to see if we've got any new questions just before we move on. If we do, please unmute yourself and ask. Okay, not seeing any. So why don't we talk about some of the different events that happen at convention? At every convention, there's a new delegates orientation. So you've got the 4-day agenda there. It's very general, the way it's laid out here, but you can see the plenary sessions are in green. And you'll see on day 1 at 8 o'clock, there's the delegate orientation session on the rules of order. So that's on May the 6th. So that follows the platform training on May the 4th. You can see when the plenary sessions start every day. They start at 9 every day, and they go until it looks like 10:30 when we have breaks, and then we come back again. So you can see there's 90-minute blocks with breaks, so that you know from a timing perspective. And 2, you'll see in that agenda when the caucuses are taking place and when the elections are taking place. Now, it's important to know that there may be other sessions that take place. If you're going as a component delegate, there may be a component caucus, and that would take place outside of what you've got in front of you now. As well, there's an all candidates meeting for the REVP and alternate REVP, which will take place outside, again in air quotes, of convention hours. Now, if you have received your convention guide, if you have a look at it, the delegate guide, you'll see on pages 7 to 11 the convention schedule and agenda. And you'll see the different events that are happening through convention. So it's far more detailed, but it'll provide you with a really comprehensive overview of what will happen over the course of the weekend. And what I used to do as part of my prep as a member was I would highlight things that I needed to be at so that I couldn't miss them. I see that Tracy's got a question. Tracy, please feel free to ask your question.
I don't have a question.
Oh,
I'm not
okay.
sure
There's
how
a
it's
question.
showing that I do.
There's a question. It's very strange, isn't it? Oh, well, I mean, hey, it's good to hear your voice.
But I do like your idea of highlighting. I went through and highlighted the caucuses I need to be at and realized I missed a few things. So now I need to go back and make sure I got everything.
Yeah, I was big on highlighting things and having post-it notes on things so that, you know, I knew where and when I needed to be. Now, given the fact that we're all going to be sitting at our computers, it's going to be a little bit different than running around in a hotel or at a convention center. It's easier on the legs, that's for sure. But, you know, it's you still need to be organized, right? And you need to know where you need to be and at what time. Very important. So we're going to do a piece on Convention 101, and we're going to sort of get you thinking about, is there anything we ought to be doing or we should be doing before we get to convention? And we're going to move on to slide 12 and look at the whole issue of resolutions at convention and then voting on committee recommendations. So on resolutions, let's pretend we're all at convention now. And, you know, we're there. The convention committees are going to be reporting to us because, as you probably know, all these resolutions go in to the REVP's office and they get assigned to a committee. So we have a bylaws committee, a finance committee, and a general resolutions committee. And those resolutions go to one of those committees, and then those committees meet and discuss the resolutions and make recommendations with respect to those resolutions and prioritize the resolutions. And all of that information is contained in the convention committee report. And so those reports are in, you'll get a priority proposal and resolutions package as part of your mail out from the office. So you will have all of this information in advance if you have not yet received it. So when the committees report on their recommendations, they are, you know, they're going to make recommendations related to particular resolutions. So as a delegate or as an observer, it's your responsibility to review the resolutions and the resolution reports and to prepare support and understand the basic process of a resolution and how it actually gets moved through convention. So we know that the committees will make recommendations and it'll be done on a list of priority resolutions. And, you know, at different conventions, so it's of note that some of you made mention that you were going to component conventions and PSAC national conventions. So different conventions may have different committees. So here in BC for the regional convention, we have the bylaws, finance, and general. At the PSAC triennial convention, we have finance, bylaws, general, and collective bargaining. And at your component conventions, you may have different committees or committees that are named different but similar names. Once at convention, the committees present a report with a list of the resolutions that they've prioritized, and they will be dealt with in this priority order. And you'll see this in the rules of order for virtual conventions. Resolutions passed at convention are ensured union resources for implementation. If a resolution is not high on the priority list, it stands a chance of not getting dealt with at convention. So again, we talked about consulting with the members you represent. So moving on to slide 14. It's really important that you consult with members before taking a position on resolutions at convention. Now, that does not mean that if people haven't told you how to vote on a particular resolution, you can't vote. You need to think about the implications of the resolution. So as a delegate or an observer, it would make sense for you to talk to your members and inform your members that you're representing and to obtain their views on key issues. The importance of delegates maintaining their integrity throughout the process. So, for example, when I was a member, I think every convention I went to, I got up and spoke about dues increases and supported dues increases because I wanted better and stronger services from the national union. And the people who elected me, some of them didn't agree with me necessarily on that, but they understood that that's one thing that I would always speak to. And they accepted that. But, you know, I was transparent about the fact that, you know, I'd probably do that given there was a need. Now, preparing to speak to a resolution, you do have a handout number 1, and this I don't think is in the delegate package, but it is posted here in our handouts. So let us know if you can't access the one on speaking to a resolution. We suggest you research your issue in advance. You consult with the members you represent, that you obtain information, statistics, and examples that will support your position or be persuasive of your point of view. Talk to other union members and find out their perspective. Anticipate the opposition and develop counter arguments to deal with their concerns. Find out if the issue has been dealt with before. And in what context. Be prepared to identify why it is important to deal with the issue now. So you could look at resolutions of record, past convention committee reports. You could ask your PSAC regional rep for help. You would want to draft speaker's notes in point form. You could do that on file cards, on post-it notes, on notebooks, and practice your presentation to ensure you're able to clearly identify or articulate key points well within the 3-minute time frame, because you only have 3 minutes to present your position. Be flexible and open to changing your notes in response to debate that's taken place prior to you getting up to speak. So again, that's in handout number 1. And then just some quick tips for speaking to resolutions. You need to wait to be recognized by the convention chair. State your name and your delegate number. Ensure the microphone. Now, if you were at the PSAC National Convention, I am sort of hoping that that's an in-person convention next year. And if it was, you'd make sure that the microphone is adjusted to your height. You would not speak into the microphone or blow into the microphone. You'd speak over it. You want to speak clearly and at a normal volume. I think it's really important to speak more slowly than normal. People stop and listen to you if you're not sounding stressed and anxious when you speak. I think it's really important to remember to breathe. Clearly identify your position on the issue at the beginning of your comments and at the very end of your intervention, and allow yourself to be passionate about the issue without letting the passion interfere with your ability to speak clearly. You have to be very mindful of the time. You've got 3 minutes. A yellow light will indicate that you have 60 seconds left before you're cut off from speaking. And again, super important at the end of your intervention that you have a strong closing. So, you know, again, brothers and sisters, I support the committee's recommendation of concurrence on this resolution because of A, B, and C, or just because of A. And, you know, people take note, right? So James is now going to take us through the voting piece, which is super important. So just before we go to James, I want to check and see if anyone has any questions. And one thing I will say, I had mentioned that you can talk to your rep. And before we started broadcasting tonight, James, Rosemary, and I were reminiscing. We were all of us at the founding BC Regional Convention. So your reps oftentimes have a lot of historical information of past conventions past, as opposed to Christmases past. And they're a resource that you absolutely want to take advantage of and access if you're needing additional information in your prep for speaking to resolutions at this convention. And my final thing that I'm going to say to you is, unlike regular in-person conventions where you have to go and stand up in front of hundreds of people and speak into a microphone, you're going to be at your home, in the comfort of your home. And I would really encourage all of you to participate in the debate and to get your feet wet if you haven't spoken at a convention in the past, because this is probably going to be the convention where you feel the most safest and secure, because there's not all that surround noise and people. So do participate. So James, enough of me.
Thanks, Patty. So we're going to move on to one of the most important aspects of the convention, and that's the voting and the voting process. There are several types of voting that will take place at the convention. As we have already talked about, Patty had mentioned that will be voting on the committee's reports. like the report of even some of the simpler ones, like the Credentials Committee. It's a committee which keeps tracks of the number of delegates and observers and guests at the convention so that we have an accurate number for which we can decide which is 50% if the vote ever gets down to it. There will also be voting on the committee's recommendations. These are the three committees that Patty had talked about, are the Finance, the Bylaws, and the Generals Committee. So there will be voting on the recommendations, and we'll go into a little bit more detail about how we vote on the recommendations. There will also be opportunities, or in more likely than not, situations where there will be a motion brought forward by a delegate, and then there will be a required vote on those motions. An example of a motion might be that a resolution is brought to the floor. A member, delegate, may want to add something to that resolution, or may want to amend that resolution in some respect, which would require that delegate to refer the matter back to the committee for further consideration. But that motion would be brought forward and would be required to be voted on by the delegates at the convention. And then, of course, there's voting in all the elections. This is a virtual convention. There will be a couple of ways to vote. The information that on the voting process and on the rules of order will be reviewed, as Patty mentioned, at a rules of order review session for virtual PSAC regional conventions. And this will be in the afternoon of Tuesday, May 4th. And I believe it's going to begin at 1 p.m. But all delegates will be sent an invitation to that meeting. There's also, the formal way of voting at convention is generally by a show of hands and a say, aye or nay. That's usually how the voting process happens, but there are sometimes the need for secret ballots, and alternatively, in in-person conventions, there are occasionally a need for having or holding a standing vote, where the vote is so close, the chair of the convention cannot tell whether it is passed or not, and then they would ask the individuals to stand. Secret ballots are conducted for the elections and will be displayed at the time. So now I want to talk a little bit about the voting itself. So essentially what you vote is either one or the other. You vote in favor or you vote against. The alternate to voting in favor and against is to abstain, which means you're not voting at all. And that could happen for a number of reasons. It could happen because you had a health break and you weren't in the room at the time. You have abstained from that particular vote, or it may be that you're conflicted about the resolution. You don't fully understand it. You may have some concerns either for or against, but really you're undecided, and you may just choose to sit on your hands or to abstain from that particular vote. Regardless, the way the voting procedure works at convention is a vote on the committee's recommendation. So the resolutions are presented and they will read, be it resolved, something is going to happen, and you as a delegate need to decide your intention, either whether you are in favor of that, the resolution, or you are against that resolution. But before that process happens, there is a committee that is struck for each of these committees, for each of the general bylaws and finance committees. And that small committee of members, your colleagues, will make recommendations It's sort of like a precursor to the convention. They sit down, they debate the resolutions, and then they decide on whether they're going to present a recommendation to the convention of concurrence or non-concurrence. If they make a recommendation of concurrence, that means that they've read the resolution and they are in agreement with the resolution and would like to see it passed at the convention. If you agree with the resolution, then you would vote in favor of the committee's recommendation. So if the committee recommends concurrence in the resolution, each and every resolution will have a recommendation of concurrence or non-concurrence. If you agree with the concurrent resolution or recommendation, you would then vote in favor of the recommendation, and hopefully you would succeed and the resolution is passed. If the committee's recommendation is that of concurrence and you disagree with that recommendation, you say, no, I don't agree with this at all, then you disagree with the committee's recommendation of concurrence, and then you would vote against their recommendation. So they're recommending to accept this, you're saying, I don't want to, so I would vote against it. And where it gets tricky is when there's recommendations of non-concurrence. If the committee has made a recommendation of non-concurrence in a resolution, they are saying, we think that this resolution should be rejected. But if you agree with the resolution, if you think it should be accepted, then in essence, you're disagreeing with the non-concurrent resolution, and as such, you would vote against the non-concurrent resolution recommendation. So if they recommend non-concurrence and you agree with the resolution and think it should be passed, you would then vote against that recommendation of non-concurrence. However, if they make a recommendation of non-concurrence and you, like them, disagree with the resolution, you would vote in favor because you're in favor of that recommendation of non-concurrence. So that's in essence how the voting happens. And what I would like to do now is maybe just run through an example of what a resolution might look like at the convention. In fact, this is General Resolutions Committee Resolution number 4. It was originated by the Vancouver Island Young Workers Committee. The committee recommendation for this particular recommendation is that of concurrence. And the be it resolved reads, be it resolved that when PSAC provides on-site childcare for an event, that this care be provided in the evening when there are PSAC sanctioned events. Examples given, meet and greets, caucus meetings, leadership Q&As, and there could be others as well. So the first thing you would do is decide for yourself whether you are in favor of that resolution as it stands. And if you are in favor of that resolution, the recommendation is of the committee is they're in favor, so you would vote with the committee and in favor of the committee's recommendation of concurrence. However, if for whatever reason you had decided that you were not in favor of that committee recommendation, you might want to vote against the committee's recommendation of concurrence because you don't agree with the resolution or the recommendation. So if you think on-site childcare would be helpful, you would vote in favor of the committee's recommendation of concurrence. But if you think that the is unnecessary expense or that it's not something that you would suggest, then you would vote against the committee's recommendation. Hopefully that's not as clear as mud. The rules of order help to facilitate convention debate and voting in an orderly way. There are two key concepts in the rules of order. The one is if a motion is debatable. If a motion is debatable, if yes, other delegates can speak to that motion. If it is not debatable, there is no debate, it is only to be dealt with by the chair. An example of a motion that is not debatable would be a motion to call the question or to put the question. So if debate has occurred on a particular resolution and the debate is continuing, someone might get up to the mic and say, I would like to call the question. It requires a seconder, and once it's second, there's no debate, and there's the chair will put the question to the floor. The vote will happen on whether the floor has would want to call the question. That vote would happen, and if it is successful, then the question would be voted on. The resolution would be voted on without any further debate. The other thing is if a motion needs a seconder, if the question or if the answer is yes, another delegate needs to support that motion. So if you are thinking of ever getting up to the mic and putting a motion together, like a referral back or an amendment to a particular resolution, if you were to stand up to the mic and make that that motion, you would require a seconder. One word of caution, don't speak to the motion or the resolution before making that motion, because you can't make a motion once you have started entering into debate. Oops. I just want to talk a little bit about some things that happen. We suggest starting by reading through the PSAC Rules of Order. They're in your delegate participation guide. You can think of them like you would when someone asks you a question about an entitlement in the collective agreement. Good practice is always to refer to the collective agreement and not just going by your memory. So it's always a good idea before convention to review the Rules of Order, specifically this one, because the Rules of Order are going to be a little bit different because they are for a virtual convention. Now remember that most chairs are very forgiving, and others will help and provide you with guidance and advice. So if you are confused, concerned, and because you're at home, you don't necessarily have someone beside you that you can confer with on a resolution or on process, feel free to, when you get to the mic and are recognized by the chair, to ask the questions, and they'll be more than willing to help you. If it is your first time at a mic or at a convention, you may want to announce that. You may want to say, this is the first time I've been at convention, and this is the first time I've ever spoken at a microphone at a convention or in the process. You'll find that the floor will grant you a great deal of latitude if you make that announcement in the beginning. They will allow you a lot of latitude with respect to that. Now, so for the upcoming PSAC Regional Convention, as I said, we're using the Rules of Order for virtual conventions. That is handout 6, but it is also those Rules of Order are also contained in your book, and it is in your guide. There are only a few changes from the 2018 Rules of Order that were used, and mainly the changes are to help facilitate voting. All the voting is going to be electronic, and there's not going to be a show of hands and say, so it's going to be a little bit different. And because of the lack of being an in-person convention, it reduces the number of ways voting can happen. So there won't be things like standing votes, and all that will be replaced presumably by a secret ballots. So we hope that you get a chance to review the virtual convention course through the PSAC online education. It is being offered right now. It's a 4-module course that you can take at your own pace. It's very good. I've talked to, I tried to get in it myself, but I've, for whatever reason, I'm precluded from getting in there. I think it's a technical issue. nothing other than that. But I would highly or seriously recommend for those who are curious about convention procedures and rules of order to participate in that online course. And I think there will be a lot of very good information shared through that. And remember, there will be a new delegate orientation at the very beginning of convention as well. So for those with some experience, there are some of the most referred to rules of order, and those are things like points of order, where the purpose of the point is to ask a question about whether correct procedures are being followed or rules are being violated. So you will hear members get to a microphone and call a point of order. Now they may also call a point of privilege, or some might call it a question of privilege. And the purpose of that is to get an immediate action on a simple matter, usually related to the comfort and well-being of the participants. And I think that for technical difficulties, we won't be recognizing points of privilege for technical difficulties. There will be a help desk that will be established, and instructions will be given for delegates and observers to get their problems resolved outside of the convention business and the floor itself. Like the Constitution, bylaws, they can be intimidating, but the rules of order they're just the tools that we use to help the members move through the process. So I hope that that's provided you with some information with respect to how things are going. And I'm going to open up the floor to questions, and hopefully between the three of us, we'll have some answers. So go ahead if you have any questions.
Angela here. Oh, can you hear me?
Angela. Yeah, I can.
I'm going to be attending the triennial convention coming up in May, and they're doing a training session a couple days before. Is that the same training as the virtual convention course you noted is on the website, or will it be different training?
It will be different training. The convention procedures course, the 4-module course, is a very good course, and it's a mini convention procedures course. We have a 1-day and a 2-day convention procedures course, and it encapsulates a lot of the information that would be in that course. I think the training that's happening on May 4th is designed to familiarize the delegates and observers, guests, and others with how the convention is going to run in a virtual world. So they're going to hopefully take us through essentially maybe like a mock type of convention, so that we can see how it's going to work, so that we will be considerably more familiar with the process when the convention actually starts. Hopefully that answers your question.
It did, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Well, I'd like to thank you all for attending, and I'm going to turn it back over to Patty just to close us out and say goodbye.
Thanks, James. Well, again, I will encourage all of you to participate in your capacity at the BC Regional Convention. I think it's going to be really exciting. It's the first virtual convention that PSAC is having. BC has almost always been the first, each time we've had something different, it's been BC that's charged out and led the way. So I think that it's going to be really exciting. So again, I'm going to remind you to keep your contact information up to date via the membership portal. And you'll continue to get updates from PSAC. If any of your contact information changes prior to convention, your email address, your mobile phone numbers, it's really important that the office has that information so that we can get you, should there be any changes, we can get you updates, be it related to the platform, whatever. We just want to make sure that we've got your contact information. 2, we want to encourage all of you to fill out the survey that you're going to receive by email after the webinar, and to share the recording with others in your local branch or committees and area councils. And there will be taped, there'll be a recording of this on the website, so other people will be able to listen to it if they weren't able to attend this evening. And we encourage all of you to sign up for upcoming PSAC educational opportunities with Connect with the BC regional office and your regional reps. And, you know, for support and for more learning opportunities. There's a new online learning platform, and we're going to be having a virtual hub, a grievance handling, and local officers courses. And James has already spoken to the conventions course, which I actually did do, and it is very well done. So I would encourage you to do that as well, so that you feel, you know, a greater level of comfort and confidence getting ready for convention. So thank you to all of you for participating tonight. And we'll look forward to seeing you, although it won't be on convention floor per se, we'll see you in our virtual world at convention in a couple of weeks.